minimum of things, man.
Welcome to the Prisoner to Painter podcast, stories of inspiration, where we talk about mental health, addiction, religion, becoming a business owner and self-sufficient, for what, when, where, and why. Join us and we can be your local hope dealer.
Inspiration and dedication. I came a long way from sleeping in them pages. I got my life back. I feel amazing. Life's a book, don't get stuck on sad pages. Rainy days with no money. Hard work leads to days that are sunny. Looking back, it was all needed. The problems, the pain, the trauma, the grieving. You are now tuned in to the prisoner to painter. Prisoner to painter. Hard work, dedication. Rainy days, inspiration. Prisoner to painter.
And now, a word from your local hope dealer.
Awesome. I think we are good. Welcome to the Prisoner to Painter podcast. My name is Nathan McDermott, and today joining us is Cheif Pittman again.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
Oh man, of course. I'm so excited, and I'm glad we've become even better friends throughout re-meeting, like going out to breakfast and stuff, man. That was so cool.
Oh, it was a great time, and I'm proud of you, proud of what you got going on, and actually the message that you're trying to get out to people. I think it's awesome. That's one of the reasons I'm here.
Thank you.
I really like it.
Thank you. You know, I try to keep my pride to the side. It's probably one of the only sins I have left, or character defects. Yeah, I'm like, man, I had breakfast with the chief of police. I've been telling me, and but what a change from the way it used to be, though.
Yeah,
really.
Really, it was great, and I had a great time with your
Yes,
wife and chatting about all the things that you got going, and I think it's great. It's all looking up.
Thank you. Yeah, my buddy Justin is opening up a thrift store or something like that. Or what they're doing is they're giving little sections. They're renting it out for like $75 every week, so people can try to sell their stuff. It's like a little market thing downtown.
Yeah.
But we're handing out free food when he does his opening. So
Nice.
It's just little stuff like that I actually get to give back instead of just stories.
That's
So
perfect.
yes, sir.
Yeah.
So this one, I know I put it in the the caption or whatever, but I also I apologize. One thing Katie always does is tax people. Followers, and then after this, I will leave this alone. But I put it in the caption or whatever, or the description that we're going to be talking about misconceptions of police and law enforcement, but also we're going to talk a little bit about our story about how we first got
Absolutely
connected.
Yeah.
So I think one of the big misconceptions, and not even with law enforcement, about criminals or people breaking the law, is the whole concept of snitching. I know that is a huge thing, and I actually wrote this down. This is the Webster's definition of snitching. So it's not even people's definition are so skewed from the beginning.
Absolutely.
So snitching is to inform someone in authority, like a teacher or police officer, about something bad or wrong that another person has done, often with a negative connotation. But it really is just a form of informing, but the term is typically used informally and carries a sense of betrayal of trust.
Sure.
So
It's mainly, I think, in the mob, that was always the thing. You know, if you were part of the mob, and if you told on someone in the family, then you risk getting killed or beat up or get your legs broken, things like that. So I think it's just a way that people use it as intimidation. I've been doing this for 41 years. I worked undercover as a police officer, buying drugs, and everybody would always say, well, I can't tell on the guy above me because he'll kill me. We never had anybody even get hurt. One guy was walking the streets and claimed he got hit by a car. They checked into it. It didn't really happen exactly the way that he said. But we went climbed the ladder a little bit with some very high-profile drug dealers, and they weren't killing anybody. And when we arrested them, they were rolling on the guy above them. So it's not. It's just one of those things. It's self-preservation. In generally in law enforcement, like with crime, you're arresting somebody that may have information about a crime that's even more severe, whether it's a homicide or a bank robbery or a kidnapping or something. people in that world sometimes run into each other.
Yeah.
So you may know about something someone else did that's way worse than what you've done.
Yep.
And maybe you can get punished for what you did, but get a little bit of a break to tell on that person. And they use that level of intimidation to try to get you not to. But I guarantee you, I've interviewed people, even in homicide cases, where they're ready to roll on the next person if it will help them.
Yeah.
So they're always pointing at snitches and saying, don't snitch, but they all do it.
Yeah.
You know, the mob may be the only place where the legitimacy of, if you tell on me, I'll kill you.
Yeah.
And then actually do it.
Yeah.
I mean, that may be the last bastion of that
Gotcha.
era. But for the most part, no. I mean, everybody that I've ever arrested, even whether it be driving on a suspended that wants to say, hey, I know who broke into that building, or who did that damage to a school or something like that. They almost all do.
Yeah.
They just don't tell you they do.
Well, and you know, clearly I know we'll get into how we met, but I very much so, it's something you just said. Driving on suspended, hey, but I know who broke into this house. Like I also feel like there's different levels to it.
Sure.
So it's like, okay, I was the getaway driver for the homicide.
Yeah.
Well, okay, well, tell him the guy who actually did the homicide, because you don't want to do 25 years for that guy.
Right.
But for you to just, you know, oh, well, I know this guy did it, and I'm getting nothing out of it.
Right.
And then maybe that's a little different, but I feel like there's different levels to the whole snitching.
Right. Well, it comes down to right and wrong.
Yeah.
If you make a mistake, you do something wrong, there's usually a price to be paid for that.
Yep.
You know, and they want you not to tell on them because they don't want to be in trouble. As soon as we go from this person to the next person, this person's telling on this person, this person's telling on that person.
Yep.
It always happens.
Sure.
I've never seen it in Jackson. You know, maybe a little bit in the drug world, but even when we were working undercover, as soon as we arrested somebody, they were ready.
Right.
You know, I mean, they didn't go out and announce it.
Yeah.
But, you know, we'd work our way up. You know, that person would get a little bit lesser charge or maybe a little less time. They didn't get off scot-free.
Yeah.
You know, the only people I ever seen get off scot-free is on, like you said, driving a car during a homicide. Maybe you didn't know the guy was going to commit a homicide, but after everybody got arrested, you realized that you get arrested and you're like, oh man.
Yeah.
No, I can tell you right now, Billy did it.
Yeah.
You know, he said he did. He said when he got in a car.
Yeah.
You know, because you don't need to go to prison for the rest of your life.
Nope.
And if you were part of it, they'll figure that out, and then you'll pay accordingly, but maybe get a bit of a break. Immunity once in a while is offered, but that's a rare thing.
Well, it seems like that would be something very big, like maybe a
It'd be
high
real big.
profile, or maybe like you took down
Kidnapping, homicide, you know, bank robbery, rapes, things like that. You know, those kind of crimes. You know, you don't want to give somebody a break on those kind of crimes. You want to give somebody a break that can get you that information to solve something bigger.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Understood. So how we first met was me doing crimes.
Yeah.
But there was a couple questions. Now that I'm sober and clean, and all these years later, there's a couple things that I want to ask as well, and get to know where your mind was. So when we first met, you came up my driveway. I actually think you were in the back of the trunk.
No, I was actually waiting down the road. I put an officer in a car with the lady that was going to buy the laptop. That was, I think it was on Marketplace or something like that. So when she rolled up and you came out and she got out and was looking at the laptop, there was a keyword that she would give when she recognized the laptop.
Okay.
And then that's when the officer, I think it was Officer Paul Albrecht,
got
out of the back of the car. And then he radioed me, and then I came flying down the driveway.
Yes, sir.
And I think we had done an anticipatory search warrant. If everything goes this way, then the judge said, yes, you can then search the residence.
Understood.
And then that's when we got into searching it. That's when I met your mom.
Yep. Yeah.
At the beginning, but that's kind of how it all started. Yeah. And I think there was I think a couple of stolen four-wheelers and just some stuff out of cars and stuff like that. But people in Napoleon were getting upset because it had been going on for a little bit.
Yes, sir.
And then we kind of got to the point, and I think with you and I, we got to a point when we were talking that there was a lot of denial. And then there was a come to Jesus moment. And then once you owned up to it, we pretty much got through it pretty good. But the thing I noticed when I was interviewing you and talking to you, it was not, you can see someone that's a hardened, just doesn't give a damn about anyone else. And I didn't get that from you. And I've been doing this a long time.
Yes, sir.
And so I feel like I'm a fairly decent judge of that kind of thing, you know. And then I think even when you were in jail, we talked a few times when you were in jail, just about how you were doing and different stuff. And so I wanted to see you. I wanted to see you do better. I wanted to see you fix things.
Thank you.
Because when you're breaking the law, I got to do the report.
Yeah.
I got to go to that house, and then that lady's pissed because I haven't found her stolen property or who broke into their house or whatever happened. And so if you can get somebody to go to the right side, not be doing that anymore, that's less work for me.
Yeah.
So I'm fine with that.
Yes, sir. So, and of course, clearly at the time, I didn't know who I was hanging out with. And I will say a little bit later about what I guess I'll just say it because I'm allowed to. So Mikey and Scotty, the two I got in trouble with. Now, of course, I didn't know it at the time, and I'm not even making no excuses. I rolled on them. But Mikey ends up going to prison for pimping out a 14-year-old, and Scotty ends up dead. Yeah. So now, of course, you don't find this out till 10 years later. I'm not justifying what I did, but it's like that really shows me I wasn't with the right people, and I wasn't I was the criminal, but I wasn't the ringleader, whatever you want to say. So,
well, I interviewed everybody a little bit separately there. So sometimes, and generally, once we get to that point, I know the answers to the questions I'm asking.
Yes, sir.
And that gives me a huge advantage. And if I've already talked to somebody who's admitted that, Mikey's the one that stole those 2 4-wheelers, or it was his idea, so-and-so was driving the car.
Yep.
If I remember right, it was something about having to put like part of the front wheels in the trunk of the car or something,
and driving
away with it and stuff. So, I mean, once you start putting that puzzle together, the more pieces that you can get, the better chance you have of convincing the person across from you that, hey, I know what happened. Now I want to hear it from you. And then you get at the truth of what's going on, and then you can go from there. And we've always, and I would say most cops, because I'm not here to say that every cop you meet and every person you run into is the best cop out there. Yeah. It matters whether or not that cop is doing the job for the right reason. It matters if he knows how. Matters if he has the right attitude, whether he has a little bit of empathy and whatnot. And those that generally don't get confessions, don't get information because people are pissed at the way they acted or the way they were treated. And I've been fortunate my whole career to have just excellent mentors that taught me how to talk to people and how to get an advantage by learning from, the youngest guy in the group says, hey, my big brother's the one that stole that stuff, and whatnot, and working your way through it, but also not to be an ass. I can be one if you push that button. I've certainly got that gear, but I try not to. You've got to choose that gear, and if not, we can get through most things. That's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah. Well, and one thing that really stuck out to me about that night, you had me and the other guys dead to rights for multiple felonies, and I don't remember what younger cop was with you, but you walked by like one busted pot plant or something, and he said, "Man, do you want to add that to the charge?" He said, "They've already got enough on their plate," and I'll never forget. That showed me that was the day that I realized that cops really are people, like they.
Yeah, but that, when you look in the big scheme of things, one pot plant is not, and I know that a lot of younger officers want to add as many charges as they can, because then if you want to start bargaining some way to get a guilty plea to this one, they want to stack those up. But over time, and once you kind of get that feeling of where you're going with the case and have handled enough of them, you'll know that I don't need that. No. I'm where I need to be. I know I can get the warrants. I can get this taken care of, and then we can figure out where we go from here.
Yes, sir.
But that's time and experience, and everybody goes through that. But I've always said that not, and this might piss off some people, but I look at police work and police officers and almost everything in life like a sporting event. When you're Derek Jeter, you're a blue chip player. You're a Michael Jordan. You're blue chip. You're top of the line already. Gotcha. And then you have A players, B players, C players, D players, E players, and a few Fs. And that's the same in law enforcement. Not everybody that does this job is an A player. There's not that many blue chip players. You usually have to work your way into becoming a blue chip type person or an A player, I would say. But most of the time, most of us run in the C, B, D, and you're trying to work your way up to be thought of as a good officer, does a good job and stuff like that. But I'll be totally honest, there's some guys that I've worked with, and I worked with a lot of great cops, but I worked with some duds. Whether it was their attitude, whether it was the lack of empathy for people, whether it's just the way they handled themselves. They always talk about the kid that got picked on in school, and then he gets a badge and he goes out and picks on everybody. That's just an easy thing for people to say.
Mhm.
But a majority of police officers run, I think, in the B and C area. And some are headed to be an A player, and then they get married, they have kids, they've got ball games to go to and stuff like that. And it's not that they still don't want to do a good job, but they're not going to give you the 150%. They're going to give you 85%. They're going to give you. They're going to solve your case. They're going to get out. They're not going to get it done in 2 or 3 days or a month. It might take them 2 or 3 months because they're busy with life. And police officers don't make money.
No,
I mean, it's not a job. I've been doing a long time, and you're never going to get rich doing it.
No, I looked up the annual income, and that was like, holy shoot. I mean, really, it was almost sad. I'm not risking my life, and I make right around the same. I was like, holy cow.
My first job when I got out of the academy as a police officer, I made $7 an hour.
Oh no, man!
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and I worked a lot in order to make it. But it's not for what we do most of the time. The run of the mill call, the traffic enforcement, as long as you don't run into somebody and you have to fight with them on the side of the road. Most calls it's not bad pay. Where it becomes difficult is when you're searching a building and there might be a bad guy in there. And stuff like that. And most people, if you said, listen, I'll write you a check for $2,000, here's my gun, go do that. They're like, no, hell no, I don't. Or if you had those people, homeowner had to write you a check to go do that job. Like a contractor. Okay, I think there's a bad guy in my basement. Okay, that's $3,000. I'll go get it. Stuff like that. So it doesn't work that way. So for the most part, what we do, I mean, I'm not complaining. I've had a good life and I enjoy where I'm at, but it's not when you start thinking about seeing, dead kids and chasing bad guys and fighting and all that stuff, which I used to enjoy a good role every now and then, but it's you're not getting paid for what you do when it's really, really dangerous.
Yes, sir. Do you know a Michelle Pelfrey?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
She said hello.
Yeah.
And my mom said, you're a good guy.
I appreciate that. I've known Michelle and Mark for a long time.
Awesome. Yeah, she works with Katie. So.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
She's a great person.
Yeah, she really is. We just had a Halloween party. No, it wasn't Halloween. It was their anniversary party, and some Jason Cross guy came and played his music. Yeah, it was cool. It was really cool.
I've worked security for him.
No kidding, man. That's small.
It's a great concert and got paid for being there.
Heck yeah. So before we go into a little bit more misconceptions, I also wanted to talk about so when I made the deal and then I ran for 6 months and you didn't. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you might have looked, but you didn't like hound me because I knew you could have got a hold of me. You didn't hound me. I turned myself in 6 months later. I'm not trying to fast forward too quick, but I know there's a lot we want to cover.
Sure.
You come pick me up from Tanner Road because I make the deal, and so I got to return all the stolen merchandise, and then I get recovery court. That's dumbed down version, but that's you came, you picked me up from Tanner Road, and this is another time when I'm like, man, this guy is not your normal cop. This is what a cop should be or can be. You stopped, you got me McDonald's. It's not like you were trying to show off. You're like, hey man, I'm hungry. Do you want something? Yeah, I'll eat something. And then I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but you let me smoke a cigarette. I was 18. Yeah, I was out. I was in jail, and he said, whatever. You kind of looked the other way, but I was like, man, this guy's such a good. And then I returned all the merchandise, but I don't know. I guess I don't know why I was saying that. I just wanted to say my side of things because,
believe it or not, I've watched some of the detectives that I grew up idolizing. Stubby Southward being one of them. Mike Henderson, who just passed away, great detective. I've watched those guys occasionally buy a bottle of wine or a pack of cigarettes for somebody and solve a major case.
Understood.
Because that guy wanted cigarettes. And he had information. And whether it's a Big Mac or a box of cigarettes or I don't smoke, so a pack of cigarettes or a 6-pack or a bottle of wine or something that person wants, and they'll give you the information that you're looking for. And there's paid informants also. I mean, those people make a lot of money saying what they know because they're in that world and they're trying to solve that. So for that, but there was also, and you and I've talked about it many times, there was also a feeling that I had that you weren't that bad a person. You made mistakes, but for the love of God, everybody does. You know, it doesn't matter whether you're a cop or not. People make mistakes,
Mhm.
and we all occasionally get on that. I call it a knife's edge.
Yeah.
And then your choices are go right or left. And
Yeah.
if you go left, now you screwed up your life. Now, how do you fix it from
Yeah.
here?
Exactly.
And it's really more about how you regain your footing
Mhm.
and what you do after that mistake that really talks about what you are
Yeah.
and what you have.
Well, so you know, I thank my mom and I thank my dad very clearly because they.
Yeah, your
they-
mom
you-
wasn't happy with me.
No,
at
she
first.
was not.
But she quickly, believe it or not, I mean,
Mhm.
she was defending her son.
Yeah.
And I totally get that.
Mhm.
And I don't think I was mean to her. I
No.
was pretty straightforward
Mhm.
at times. But then, you know, as we got going through it, she became a really decent friend. I mean,
Yeah.
a decent person
Yeah.
to talk to about when we were looking for you and stuff like
Mhm.
that. And then she realized, you know, he's headed down a bad path. How do
Yep.
we get him back?
Yep.
You know, and that's every parent.
Yeah.
The ones that are bad are the ones that keep doing it, and the kid keeps going further and
Mhm.
further down. And that's the accountability thing. Probably the thing that bothers me the most these days is in parenting. I hear it all the time, and they want to defend their child, even though they know their child's wrong.
Yeah.
And I get that to a point.
Yeah.
But once you do that very often, now he's building a buffer for the next
Yeah.
wrong thing he's going to
Yeah.
do. And I think that, you know, there is a difference between spanking your kid or grounding him
Mhm.
and also taking the knee and talking to him. But if he's not getting that, you have to go somewhere.
Yeah.
Now you certainly don't, you know, whip them with a belt and leave marks from their heels all the way up their back.
Yeah.
You don't break their arm or jaw or nose or wrist or something, but discipline's lacking. And then also accountability is the big thing. Because if your kids are held accountable, and I know you had Caitlin came on and talked to you, and there was always some accountability. We actually had trials at my house.
Yeah, she
Over
was
stuff.
telling us
You know,
about
and it
that.
was really more just to try to teach them, look, this,
Mhm.
I'm not buying this.
Yeah.
You know, you can tell me whatever you want. I know that's not true.
Yeah.
Let's figure out what's right and wrong and
Yes, sir.
what direction to go.
Yep.
Unfortunately, that's not the case. I bet you probably 85% of the time when I go to a parent to interview a kid or something like that, I get the parent these days that wants to protect it and won't do anything.
Mhm.
Well, occasionally, and I have a few really big cases where the parents were like, look, you did this. I know you did it. You're lying.
Yep.
He knows you're lying.
Yep.
Let's figure this out. And
Yeah.
those parents are amazing.
Yep.
I mean, those are the people that those kids are going to find a solid ground.
Yep.
And hopefully when they raise their kids and
Yep.
on it goes. Now, I've seen some kids in bad situations come out on the right end as well.
Mhm.
They can get there,
Yep.
but you're not helping them by making excuses or doing that. And unfortunately, it's more the exception than the rule these days.
Well, and now that we fast forwarded, I'm sure you had some ideas back then. My mom actually did not know where I was, but when she found out, she came and picked my ass up and
Yeah.
drove me up to second circuit, or not second circuit,
Fourth-
district court, 12th district.
1250, yeah.
Well, because that's where I was at the
Yeah,
time. I
started,
went,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
but
went to Fourth District.
man, she drove down to Ohio and she picked me up and
Oh,
she
she's a good lady.
no, she is.
She was not very happy with me at the beginning.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't blame her. I understand that's not something you want to have happen.
No.
Police come flying down your driveway and searching your house, and
Yeah.
nobody wants that. You
Yeah.
know.
But what I'm trying, so I thank my mom and my dad clearly because they see me through it all, and I thank Phil and I thank all these people. You're the big reason I got the deal, and you're the big reason I am who I am. So I really thank you.
Well,
Like,
I
thank you.
appreciate you saying that, but that has a lot more to do with you than it does me.
Yes, sir.
You know, I mean, you chose to try to fix it.
Yep.
A lot of people don't, and unfortunately, then they just keep going.
But there
You
was
know.
something about you seeing something in me that made me see
Well,
something in
I-
me because I didn't see it.
I really, honestly, I hope, you know, and I'll never know. And I say this all the time. I'll never know. God, I hope I don't get emotional. I never know whether or not I'm a good cop. It's other good police officers and other people that are judging me fairly will make that decision.
Yep.
What I think of myself, and I think one of the biggest misnomers or one of the biggest failures of police officers is their ego. You know, ego will get you in a lot of trouble.
Yep.
Confidence is a different thing.
Yes, sir.
You won't run into many people that won't tell you that I'm not confident
Yeah.
in my job.
Yes, sir.
In my job, I'm very confident.
Mhm.
Other factors in my life, probably not so much.
Mhm.
But in my job as a police officer, I'm very confident. People can consider that arrogance.
Yeah.
And I try not to be arrogant. But if someone tries to tell me how to do my job, they're
Mhm.
not going to get very with me. Now, if they want to sit down and try to explain to me way,
Mhm.
or another police officer say, hey, listen, I saw that. Maybe you ought to think about this. I'm willing to learn every day. But it's really, if a police officer tells you he's a great cop, he's lying, because it's not his.
Yeah.
He doesn't get to decide that.
Yes, sir.
Other people decide that, you know.
Well, and I know I said this last episode, but we talk about the people that you do remember and the people that you probably, oh, he hates me. Man, imagine all the people that will talk about you when you're gone. Like my kids will hear Cheif Pittman.
Oh,
I really believe that I for the 100 people that you might remember bad, there's 300 good. I know it because I know you're a good guy.
Well,
So,
I've had people. I was walking through Meyer one day, and I had my kids with me, and I saw a guy I arrested for drunk driving, and he wasn't happy. And he walked over and he said, "Hey, aren't you so and so?" And I said, "Yeah." And my kids I told him, "Hey, just start walking off that thing
in case it was bad, or
in case it got stupid."
Mhm.
And he said, "I just want to tell you thank you."
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And we had a nice conversation, but that was probably 25 years ago when people accepted responsibility for their
Mhm.
mistakes.
Yeah.
And he just said, "Hey, thanks." So there are a lot of great people
Mhm.
out there, and just because you make a mistake doesn't make you a bad person.
Yep.
If you keep making that mistake
Mhm.
and you keep going down that path, then yes,
Yep.
then that's your choice.
Yep.
But you gotta give people a little bit of a chance, because nobody's perfect.
Well, and going just from the criminal side of things to just cops don't just deal with criminals. And I'm glad I get to bring this up. My dad hit a car. It wasn't his fault. But yeah. So, which thankfully to you, he got lost through it because not thankfully to you, you just said what happened, but he hit the side of a car and he almost died, and you rescued him. So not only do you deal with criminals, you also are in the business of helping people all the way around.
Yeah.
So
That's the best part of the job. When you if you're fortunate enough in a situation, maybe you save a life, or you stop somebody. One of my best friends from high school had a heart attack, and I was there with him that day, and I was scared for him. I held his hand, and to this day, when we see each other, he gives me a hug.
That's awesome.
And that's the bad part about being in Napoleon is I grew up in Napoleon, so I know most of those folks.
Yeah.
So when good things happen, I'm there, and that's
Yeah.
awesome. When bad things happen, I'm there, and it sucks.
Yeah.
It sucks bad.
Yep.
And whatnot. But there are a lot of great things being a cop gives you that isn't money, but it's worth way more.
Yeah.
And this situation between you and I think is one of those things.
Yeah.
Being making a difference or helping somebody is huge.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of times people have bravado or whatever, and they don't like cops or don't like this or don't like that. But when they really sit down and think about it, when something bad happens, who are they going to call? And then when you get there, if you can fix that situation for them, you can change that.
Yep.
When we were talking earlier, like pet peeves and things, I have people all the time tell me, well, so-and-so is just a great cop. And I'm like, oh, really? Where'd you meet him at? Oh, yeah, he stopped me, but he didn't write me a ticket. So he's a great cop. And
That
I'm
don't
like,
make them.
okay.
Yeah.
That doesn't make him a great cop.
No.
It might make him compassionate and good for you that you got a break, but that doesn't make him a great cop.
No.
And that kind of bothers me when people do that, because there are a lot of great cops out there, and they do a really good job.
Yeah.
And I don't think most of them ever get into this job to just to be a prick. It's not like we wake up every day walking out there thinking, whose day can I screw up today?
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to tell you that once in a while when I run into a bad guy
Mhm.
or this being a real ass to me,
Yeah.
that when his day gets ruined, I'm not upset about it.
Yeah.
But I didn't start out my day thinking I need to go find him and mess up his day. It's they come across, and it's like going to a domestic. Nobody wants to go to a domestic.
Yeah.
You don't want to go in there and hear them call each other names and accuse each other of stuff and whatever, and everybody's mad, and you're in a bad spot.
Yeah.
And those are probably the most terrifying situations, depending on whether there's guns involved, alcohol, drugs. You don't know what that person's got going on in their head that has got them into this place that they're at. So it's very, very dangerous. And you usually don't walk out of those with a clear winner.
Yeah.
That's not a win.
No.
If you can get them to calm down and not have to take somebody to jail, but if you've assaulted her, pushed her down, or she slapped him or threw something at him or whatever, you occasionally have to take him to jail, and then that sometimes leads to a fight and then more charges. And so you don't go there thinking it's not like you just drove by and ran in the house to see if there's a domestic. Somebody called you to go there.
Yeah.
And the same with traffic stops, guys. That's where people get the most pissed at think at cops. because you made a traffic stop on somebody and they don't like it. Either they know they were wrong or they didn't think they were or weren't sure. And depending on how they act, I was trained by Phil Rutledge and Kevin Stellingworth and some guys is you walk up and you talk to them and see how their attitude is.
Yep.
Your attitude will determine my attitude and possibly the outcome,
Yep.
Depending on how you approach it.
Yep.
You know, if you tell me to go get a cup of coffee and a donut, leave you the hell alone, now we're talking. Now I can be a bigger prick if I need to be. If you're just like, sir, man, I didn't know I was speeding. I wasn't even paying attention, having a bad day. My wife's pissed at me. The kids were late for school, whatever. And I'm like, dude, I have been there.
I get it.
You know, can you slow down without a ticket?
Yep.
Oh, yes, sir. And then they're on their way. But if I've stopped that guy 3 times in 2 weeks for the same thing, that's different. Now, you know, give them a chance, and depending on their driving record and all that stuff. But it's funny. You know, like we talked earlier, you're never going to win an argument on the street with a cop. No, you're not going to win. You can go to court, say your side, especially now with body cameras and all the information we have, and either get a break or whatever. But you're not going to win on the street. You're not going to win an argument on the street. And the stuff that's going on in society today with people screaming in officers' face and spitting on them, I'm like, oh man, I'm so glad I work in Napoleon, live in Napoleon, and don't have to deal with that kind of thing.
Well, and that was one of the things that I'm glad we kind of brought this up. Is I won't even say it's a misconception, but I hear people say, well, I shouldn't have to talk to them with respect. It's their job and this and that. And I've heard this. If you talk to anybody the way that you talk to them, you would get met with the same grief. So it's not just because they're a cop. Like, you shouldn't meet anybody with that amount of disrespect. Yeah. Period. It doesn't matter cop or it don't matter who it is.
It doesn't matter.
You know, and then another story, I got 3 DUIs all in the same month. All my fault. I was a drunk. Patrick Bolter pulls me over. Excuse me, blah, 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 blah. Take his breathalyzer. I went to jail. Second time I got a DUI, I didn't even give him the chance. I rolled down the window. I'm drinking. He took me out. I was met with respect because I gave him respect. Yes, he's not owed it necessarily, but nobody's owed it. Just be kind, and normally they're kind back. Yeah, I mean, and that's to everybody. That's not just cops. Yeah, you know,
teachers, you know, coaches. I occasionally go through the schools, and occasionally we get called. And like I said, Napoleon's kind of a quiet community. We don't have a lot of that, but occasionally you'll see somebody being really disrespectful to a teacher. I can't even imagine. I mean, I would have never survived that. My dad would have taken me out if I had done that. You know, I got in trouble for skipping school, and they knew I was going to skip. I still got in trouble. You know, so it's a different world, and I'm thankfully, hopefully, going to be retiring soon. I keep trying. I'm getting closer, but I just hope the pendulum swings back a little bit because. Believe it or not, police officers, usually when you sign up to go to the academy to do that job, you're there because you want to make a difference. You want to help people. It can turn if you're, you know, I guess in an area where it's just constant chaos and bad stuff going on, it can probably turn your attitude. But if you're, you know, if you do the job long enough and whatnot, you're going to have ups and downs. I've never been accused of brutality. I've never been accused of being racist or, you know, just stopping somebody for whatever their race was or anything like that, because I didn't do my job that way. You know, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm sure it does. And like I said, but I think the national average for the last I saw is less than 3% would be considered bad police officers out of the 900,000 police officers are in the country or whatever. That's the last I heard. Man, 2.7, I think, is what I heard.
If I'm not mistaken, and I don't want to say this if I'm wrong, so if I'm wrong, please correct me. Sure. Didn't Obama kind of start the war on police? Yeah. Okay, that's
with Ferguson.
Yeah, and we try to stay nonpartisan. You know that, but if the facts are the facts, then it's just the facts.
I'm still pissed about it.
Understood.
It started actually with Trayvon Martin, and obviously depends on what side, because they kind of blamed George Zimmerman and kind of acted like they thought he was a police officer for a while. Okay. And he wasn't. He was like a
PI or something.
No, it was neighborhood watch. Type guy.
So he wasn't.
It wasn't anything like that.
Gotcha.
And then it kind of started there, but it just went sideways after Ferguson, and they destroyed Darren Wilson. Was the police officer in Ferguson that shot him, and they you know, hands up, don't shoot. They've never retracted that. You know, the NFL never did, the NBA, all those people that claimed came out, hands up, don't shoot, all the actors and and people in Hollywood that were ripping on the cops. And then it turns out, well, he didn't have his hands up.
Yeah.
And it was a lie.
Yep.
And they've never said they're sorry. They've never pulled back from that.
Yep.
I think Derek Chauvin's a jackass for the way he acted in the George Floyd thing. Because he shouldn't have done his job that way.
Yeah.
We're not trained to do it that way.
Yep.
Now the knee on the neck for a couple of seconds while you're trying to get somebody under control, but for the period of time and whatnot. And I think he just destroyed credibility for a lot of police officers. And I don't know if we'll recover from.
I'm really glad that you said that, because I think you'll agree with my standpoint on this. Regardless of what anybody says, and they bring up that he used to be a criminal, and I hate that they threw that at it. I what they did was wrong, this, that, and the third, but I always hated that they threw, well, he was a criminal at it. That doesn't help the case. Like
it doesn't. It's part of probably the argument, and the fact that he was actually committing a crime with counterfeit money.
Yes, sir.
At the time.
Yes, sir.
But it's just one of those things, and that just. Everybody can have a bad situation.
Yeah.
You can have, you can get wrestling with somebody. And like I said, I've been in a few fights. It wasn't really much of a fight as it was trying to get somebody under control. But, if they have a heart condition and they die, then you get accused of that. And you didn't do that on purpose. You're just trying to get him under control. He chose to fight. And stuff like that. So I hate it when one guy or a group of police officers do something bad, and then we all get painted with that brush.
Yeah,
it's unfortunate, and it's not fair. It's part of the deal, but it's not fair.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it's one of those double-edged swords. I feel like, 'cause no matter how much you guys get picked on, no matter this, no matter that, A, you're not going nowhere. B, we need law enforcement, because without law enforcement, people are people. Without law enforcement, without law and order, the whole country would be on fire.
You give people an inch, they'll take a mile
every time.
It happens.
Yep.
It happens. Even good people in a regular job where you give them a couple hours off.
Yep.
Next thing you know, they're, hey, can I leave early today?
Yep.
Hey, what about this? You can give people an inch, and they're going to keep taking until you stop them.
Yep.
From doing it.
It's almost like human nature.
It is human nature.
Yeah.
Because it's a benefit. You're like, oh man, I got out of work, 4 hours early that one day or whatever, and now can I do this? Can I do that?
Yep.
And I think you should allow some of that, especially you get good employees, you got stuff going on, and whatnot. You can do that. I think sometimes in sports, your best athlete maybe sometimes acts like a bigger jackwagon than the rest of the team.
Yep.
But you're sometimes like, well, he brings a lot more to the table than the others. Now that's not necessarily fair.
No.
And one of the points I was going to bring up is on a traffic stop for tickets, I've held this forever. There is no perfect way. Okay, the only way to be 100% fair to everybody is you stop somebody for a violation, you write them for that violation, or you don't write anybody for that violation.
Yes, sir.
Because why does that guy deserve a break and not this woman over here or that guy that comes by 10 minutes later doing the same thing?
Yeah.
For me, it's always attitude. It's attitude, driving record, how you treated me, what your excuse was. I used to be on like the highway or M50, 127, somebody be coming at you at say 88 miles an hour, and you clock them, you see them before on radar, long before they see you.
Yes, sir.
And all of a sudden it pops up and there's a little bit of a tone and it's really loud, high pitched, and you're like, oh, and you're paying attention, and then they see you and the front of their car dives. Damn near scraping the ground, sparks flying, whatever.
Yep.
And then you turn around and stop. You walk up and say, sir, I stopped you. And they go, I don't know, but I wasn't speeding. And you're like, now you're lying to me already.
Yeah.
If you just said, man, I was flying and I'm sorry.
Yep.
I might still write you the ticket. I may give you a break. Yeah. But when you lie and when you try to make it sound like you weren't, or you just have a pissy attitude, that's going to determine what happens from there. And it's, a lot of times people think, like quotas. I have never worked in a department, and I'm not aware of a department in Jackson County that ever had a quota.
Yes,
now, I will say that the guys that work our traffic, their traffic cars are usually slick tops, and they're out, and their job is to go out in areas designed by complaints by citizens. People are flying down this road. People are going through a school zone, county park, whatever it may be. They're going way too fast. Neighborhoods complaining about people speeding. And we'll send an officer out in that area, and his job is to slow people down. And if you're in the traffic unit, they expect you to write tickets, probably more than you give warrants. But the regular patrolman that's out there, he's not got a quota. He's not looking to do that. And the traffic guys don't have a quota, but they're stopping people, and you better be making stops. In Napoleon, we have no quotas, but I expect our officers, when they see a violation, to stop the person, let them know to fix it and move on. And then that way our streets are safer. And because the lights are on and people see it, they go, hey, these guys are out, they're out there working. Now they don't know whether that person that officer stopped got a ticket or not. And unless it gets publicized, we just had a guy driving 99 miles an hour through Napoleon.
I was actually going to bring that up. So
and he almost, my daughter, Caitlin, was in the car, second one to the last one he passed before the officer turned around. But Captain Jacobson saw him off duty up on South Street in M50 and called Jake Mills, who's one of our officers, does a great job. He wound up coming into that area, and he clocked him at 99, right in front of Fox Farms, in the turn lane, which is really dangerous. And then the officer turned around on him, and he couldn't catch him because he nailed it after the officer went by. And we wound up using video cameras and citizens, to kind of help us with that, and we were able to track the guy down and arrest him. So that was great.
Two things real quick before I forget. So Officer Jake Mills, man, he pulled over a guy with a sex crime, a child molester. I asked him, man, how do you stay impartial to that? And he wrote him a ticket for what he did. And because I was like, man, I'd find everything that I could and impound his car or whatever. But he was straight and narrow about it, and I super respect him.
That sometimes can be difficult when you maybe know what that history is with that person. A lot of times, what people don't understand is, so if you get a guy that's charged on a CSC 4, that's what he got convicted of or what he pled to. That may not be what he did. He may have done something way worse. But he got a plea deal. So when they look on the sex offender registry and say he's sex offender 4, maybe he was doing something more minor, slap some girl on the butt or indecent exposure or something like that. Or, depending on the evidence they had, it might have been a CSC 2nd. Generally they don't plead the first and thirds, which are penetration, down to a 4. But a lot of times in the same one, when someone's convicted, on a crime, you may have broken into 100 cars. It just says you broke into a car. And whatnot. And that's the backstory that a lot of people don't realize. But generally we see it because we can see the charges, and or we've investigated or been involved in it and stuff. So it's kind of interesting that I get that question a lot, about people. Well, he only did this. Well, maybe not.
That's all you see.
That's all you see.
Well, and it's fun because I'll pull up my name on D12 and I'm like, it's mostly right, but not everything's there. Nobody knows all of it. But another thing, I was reading on Jackson News, whatever, their stupid Facebook page. Everybody's convinced that your new cameras are going to be used for a lot more than what they were used for.
Ours aren't. They are some. I can tell you, I went through a training here not too long ago. I would not go to Georgia and spit on a sidewalk in Georgia. They have, I think, over 30,000 cameras through the downtown area and on the entrance ramps and exit ramps and whatnot. And some of them are not just license plate reader cameras. Some of them are traffic ticket cameras and stuff like that. So the technology is there to do some of that, just like on the expressways or toll roads. They have those kind of cameras that snap a picture of your plate and then they mail you a ticket. Ours aren't for that. Ours, and that was a big thing in the community, was concerned about that. And I understand that. But if I was in a high crime area, I'd want as many cameras as I could get. And down there, they have a MOU with all of the businesses. And so if they have a crime, they send out an email and asking those businesses to send in their video from this time period to this time period to try to identify. And they have facial recognition and all those kind of things. And I'm telling you, if I ever go to downtown Georgia, I'm not spitting on the sidewalk. I'm going to walk the crosswalk when I'm supposed to walk the crosswalk. They have almost like a surveillance society there, but they're trying to lower that crime rate. It's absolutely terrible. So the only way you're ever going to get that back under control. But I also understand the thing of, I don't want to live in a surveillance society. I understand that.
Yep.
But with today's technology, man, doing a crime is not really a good thing.
No,
not smart.
I just thought it was funny because I see people arguing, and I'm like, I just have to remember to ask Chief Pittman that, because they, all the people argue about anything.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm like, I don't think that's what they're for.
I
But
think some of the concerns legitimate, because you don't want people knowing everywhere you go.
Yeah.
And what you're doing and following you around. It's the thing I find funny about that is some of those people, if they're in their house and they're having a domestic and they're out in the front yard and the neighbor starts filming them, they don't want to be filmed.
they'll freak out about it. Yeah.
They don't film me, and whatnot, because you're going to prove that I'm being a jerk.
Yep.
And stuff like that. And yet, if there's somebody was committing a break into their house, they're going to want all the neighbors to get their cameras in, so we can see if we can identify a car or a suspect or whatnot. And the other thing that kind of kills me, and that kind of a pet peeve of mine, is we post a lot of things on Facebook about trying to solve a crime if we're having trouble identifying a car. Once in a while, we had one where they had a fake license plate on the car, and some moron typed on there, "Run the plate." And I'm like, really?
You not think we did?
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. We're not, the plate isn't coming back to anything, or it's off something else, or they've altered it in some fashion. And when we ask the public for help, we want their help, not their criticism. We're asking, do you recognize this car? We're not asking you to become, Barney Fife or Matlock or one of those people and solve our crime for us. But if you know who that person is, or you've seen that car before, you know exactly who it is from the picture, that's great stuff. I mean, that just keeps the community safe. But there's always people out there that want to try to be, smarter than everybody or whatever. That annoys me once in a while. Caitlin has to calm me back down. And that's not that.
Another question about that. When you post a car, is it always just for a crime, or is it for maybe a person of interest or a witness?
No, we've actually tracked down and used the flat cameras to get some Alzheimer's patients. I think we've had
that's phenomenal.
We've had 3. One of our first ones was an older gentleman that was gone for, I think, 2.5, almost 3 days.
Wow.
Driving back and forth from Ohio to up towards Detroit and Ann Arbor and back. And finally, we got an alert on the camera down in Ohio, and they found him in a parking lot and got him back. And we actually went down south of Blissfield to meet the Ohio police.
That's awesome.
Picked him up, took him back home to his family, and he had just gotten lost.
Man.
And whatnot. So there's a lot of great things, especially, for me, if there's a homicide and we can get a suspect with the use of those cameras, a bank robbery, a rape, a child kidnapped or something like that. That's why I want them. Not that we ever have that, but if we have one, that's too many for me. So if we can solve that, and then if we can, we have the B&B Hardware in Napoleon, and they have terrific cameras, and they're terrific people, and they call us and say, hey, I had this go on or whatever, and they'll if we don't recognize that person and we put it out there, maybe the public does, and we can solve that, and then B&B doesn't get ripped off. And that's we're there to protect the community. So that's what they're for. But I understand the idea of being a little bit nervous about having everything in your life videotaped and whatnot. And some of them, I think, are afraid that you're going to know that they went to their girlfriend's house, or something.
And that's
like that,
probably more what it is.
Because I'm like,
if you don't want to know if you don't want people to know where you're at all the time, leave your phone at home. Like there's 100 other ways that people know where you're at besides your camera on the side of the road.
One of our cameras is right down by Aggie's, facing south towards Brooklyn. And I talked with Mr. Ash about having it there because the concerns of it being outside the park, but it just takes a picture. It doesn't say that you came from Aggie's parking lot. It just says you were heading south on 50. That's all it says. And he understood that, but if he would have had a big issue, we'd probably try to find a way to move it down a little bit further. I've never believed in sitting on bars and waiting for someone to, I believe that it's probably happened. I'm not saying that all police officers are perfect, but I've never worked with anybody that's ever sat on a bar looking for a drunk driver. I've heard about it. I've had people tell me about it. I've heard occasionally maybe this police officer or that police officer does that a little bit more. I don't believe in that. I wouldn't do it. But they're not everybody's that way. And again, cops aren't perfect. Not everybody does it what I would consider.
No, that's perfect, because the reason I bring it up is because you can't drink and drive. That is the law. So I've always been curious, how the hell does a bar work? Now, clearly, you shouldn't get smashed and then drive. I get that, but I'm like, just always felt crazy to me. So I was going to ask that if that's a common practice, but I guess it's not.
It's not. I mean, when I worked in Brooklyn, it was back in 1985. They were accusing us at Columbia Township of putting a special paint on the back of cars, like drive through and spray them, and then would go down the road. We had a special light that would light up, so we knew they were at the bar. And I'm like, you got to be kidding
me. Yeah.
We could arrest them down on M124 in Audell, which is almost into Norval Township.
Yeah.
7-8 miles from the bar.
Yeah.
Turned around on them downtown, and they'd have a Beach Bar pizza in the back of their car, and they go, "Oh yeah, you followed me, you set me up." And it's like, are you serious?
Yeah.
Maybe it was because you were mowing over mailbox.
Yeah, no kidding.
That was probably the first clue.
Maybe because you're driving down the middle.
So I don't know that anybody does that. I'm not saying that nobody ever has, but Jackson County, the only thing that matters for us when we go to court with the prosecutor, the judges and whatnot is whether or not we have integrity and whether or not the courts believe in what we're saying. And if we're dishonest, if we lose that respect, then every case that we take before the courts after that is going to be suspect. Whether it's the prosecutor not believing 100% because you didn't tell the truth, on the stand, or they think you might have fudged it a little bit, then you're going downhill. So everything that you do from that point on is suspect.
Gotcha.
And that's the last thing that you want is to have that happen.
Yes, sir.
So, most officers, I would say probably 98% of the officers I worked with had great integrity. Not all of them were great at their job or anything like that, but I didn't work with people that were liars or that were trying to frame someone. I would have never stood for that if I saw it go on, but it's just some of that stuff that gets said is just total BS. And it's funny because I go to the bar once in a while. I don't drink very much, but I go to the bar and I hear a guy telling a story, and it might be about one of my officers and how he outran him or whatever. But then the one time he did caught him, I wasn't speeding. Bragging about all the things that they did here and outran the cops or got away with it or something like that. And then the one time that they got a ticket, I wasn't even close to speeding. He just made that up. Or writing people for 2 miles an hour over the speed limit. It's never happened. It's not. I mean, the judges in Jackson County, will there be a big meeting? If you start writing people for 1 or 2 over, a lot of times they're going 10 or 12 over, and they get it dropped down to 5, and that's the officer giving them a break. And instead of respecting that, they tell the story like I was only going 5 over. And I had a great story. Guy I used to bowl with, nice guy. One night at the bowling alley, he told me, he said, you wrote me a ticket. I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, yeah, when you were in Napoleon, you wrote me a ticket. And I went, wow, it was a long time ago. Because that's before I went back to Napoleon. And I said, really, where at? And he told me, and he goes, and I was only going 4 miles an hour over, and you wrote me. And I was like, that's impossible. I've never ever done that. That's total BS. I've never done that. And so he went on with the story. The next day I went to the courts, pulled the ticket. His name, where it was at, M50 and South Street and all this other stuff. Tony Shepard, an officer that's about probably 5.5, 6 inches shorter than me, doesn't look like me at all, had written him a ticket. So I took the copy of the ticket to the bowling alley, and I waited for all of his friends to get around. And I said, now remember, you said it was me, right? You know for sure it was me. And he goes, yep, it was you. And I set the ticket down and showed him. I said, first of all, you were going 14 miles an hour over the speed limit, and the officer gave you a break. So now you've lied on his name for giving you a break. You're lying on my name because I wasn't even there. And I didn't even work for Napoleon, and I was at Jackson County. And I embarrassed the absolute dog. And I was happy to do it. Because he was lying. That's not what really happened. And I talked before. I've got a good friend of mine that was telling me the other night that she beat a traffic ticket. And I'm like, okay, well, tell me what happened. And she said, well, I went in and I told them my story and that I had a really clean driving record, and they dropped the points, and I paid $100 fine. And well, you didn't beat the ticket. You got an extra break, maybe on top of what the officer already gave you or whatever, and that's fine. We all know that happens. And we've got great magistrates, and we have forever. The magistrates that we've had in Jackson County for traffic tickets has always been phenomenal. And they know the officers, and they know whether that officer is going to be object to that guy. And a lot of it's how we testify. Yes, stop the guy. He said this, I said that. This is how I clocked him. This is my training, whatever. And then the magistrate goes, well, I think I'm going to go ahead and reduce that to an impaired or I mean, impeding traffic with
Okay.
no points, and we go, okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. You didn't beat the officer. It's, you beat the officer if the judge goes, I don't believe that happened,
Yep.
and lets you go completely.
Mhm.
That's a win. That means you won
One. Yep.
in court.
Yep.
But if you got struck some sort of a deal, that doesn't mean that you beat the officer, because he doesn't care.
Nope.
Nope. If he cared, he probably would have written you the full vote and objected if the
Exactly.
judge chose that.
Yes, sir.
So it just, sometimes it's the way people either believe things happen or the way they say things happen. But I'm getting old and grumpy, so I had to call her out on it.
Yeah, sir. Hey, of course. Hey, so what other thing? And then I know I wanted to hear what you had to say from your, but one of the misconceptions that I hear a lot, and I don't know how true it is, and I know that you will be the one to give me the right answer. So they say your Miranda rights were a part of Roe v. Wade. When Roe v. Wade got overturned, that your Miranda rights don't have to be read to you anymore. Is that true?
Well, I'm not sure. I don't know the connection to Roe v. Wade.
Okay.
With that, but
Okay.
Miranda rights, I don't have to read you your rights if I'm not going to ask you a question.
I didn't think so. Okay.
I can arrest you, take you to jail. Now, I should tell you why I'm arresting you. That's part of our protocols.
Mhm.
Is you're under arrest for suspended, you're under arrest for drunk driving,
Yep.
you're under arrest for a warrant out of Ishpeming
Okay.
or whatever. I'll tell you why I'm arresting you. And that's courtesy. I
Yeah.
mean, you need to know what's going on.
Yes, sir.
But if I'm going to ask you, did you steal those boat motors?
Mhm.
And then as soon as I put you in custody,
Yep.
I have to have Miranda
You have
read
to read. Okay.
if I'm going to interrogate you, if
Yes,
I'm
sir.
going to ask you questions.
Yes, sir.
If I put you in the back of the car, tell you you're under arrest for a warrant, you're going to Ishpeming for a child paternity warrant or something like that,
Yep.
then I don't have to ask you any questions.
Understood.
And if I can drive to the jail, if we don't want to talk, we don't talk.
Mhm.
If you sit in the back and I don't ask you a question and you start telling me about your buddy that stole the boat motors
Mhm.
and start telling me about everything else that goes on,
Yep.
and then I take that case and work it further,
Mhm.
but I never asked you a question, I'm golden.
Understood.
Because if you're just talking, they call that a spontaneous utterance.
Yep.
You start admitting to stuff, I'm not going to stop you.
Yeah, no kidding.
You have to throw up a flag and go, wait.
Yeah, yeah. Hey,
You
wait
know,
a minute. Let me
But
read
if I
you your.
say, as soon as you stop and I go, oh, who else was with you? Now I better have read Miranda, because anything
okay.
after I ask the questions, done.
Gotcha.
And whatnot. So you'd be surprised. Sometimes people get in the car, and especially if they're drinking, they start
Yep.
yabbering. It's your opponent's making mistakes. Don't interrupt them.
Yeah,
Just
no
let them
kidding.
tell you whatever they want.
Yes, sir.
And then it just matters. Obviously, you got to do the police report to make sure that they know that you follow the law.
I feel like another huge misconception. I know you cannot speak for all cops, but okay. NWA said it, so this is the only way that I can. So he said, don't let there be a black and a white one, because he's talking about that the black police will try harder to make the white cop respect him instead of his black community. Do you ever see a problem with that black takes blue instead of their own community?
No, I worked with several black police officers. I think a couple of that were Hispanic. And most of them they just want to do a good job.
Yeah.
Now I think they work hard for the community. They may understand their particular community, especially when you talk about like an inner city area or whatnot. They may understand that area a little bit better and how it actually works.
Yes, sir.
So I think sometimes they can be more effective in that area. But all police officers, I think, have a little bit of the reason the thin blue line. The reason it is officers support each other.
Yep.
Just like when Obama came after Darren Wilson and Ferguson, we all stand behind, because we know based on what the evidence showed, he did the right thing.
Yep.
And whatnot. So we're not going to stand for somebody trying to run somebody out of the job or ruin their life when they didn't do anything wrong.
Yes, sir.
Like you said, Derek Chauvin's a completely different animal. I know a lot of police officers just pissed off as hell about the way he did it.
Yep.
And there's a lot of stuff out there, and I don't want to get into whether was using drugs or whether that caused or not. Just the way he acted, he was acting like an asshole.
Yep.
And that's offensive, because that takes every one of us, and I'll put myself in that category, that wants to do the job the right way. That takes us right out of it.
Yep.
We're not going to defend that. That's bullshit. Don't do that. So I think there's a lot of that. I think most police officers will back up another officer if they believe he's doing the right thing. But if they believe that he's not, there's a lot of officers out there that will go to the boss and say, hey, that guy was a little extra rough. Putting that guy in the car didn't need to be. And then that guy gets brought in and talked to, even if there wasn't a complaint made. You know, if you see somebody doing something behind the scene a little bit that shouldn't happen. And now, obviously, with body cameras, which I'm a big fan of, they have helped us more, I think, prove that we're doing the right thing more often than it's ever turned around and hurt us. And the ones that did get hurt by it deserved it. You know, so that's their fault. They know they're being taped. If they want to act like an ass, they're probably acting like a bigger ass if it didn't happen. So good for him for, you know, getting suspended or retrained or whatever have you. But we have a lot of, we were talking about parents earlier. We have parents once in a while that come in and say, well, you know, your officer gave my son a break, but he was really rude to him. And I'm like, well, okay, tell me what happened. And they'll relay the story. And I said, well, why don't you, I'll look up the ticket and the video, and then why don't you bring him in and we'll sit down, and I've got a big screen on the wall and we'll put it up there and we'll listen to it, and he can tell me where he feels the officer was rude. And they'll go, well, would you just look at the video and let me know? And I'll watch the video and call him, listen, come on in anytime you want. I've got it queued up, ready to go. And they'll go, was he rude to my son? And go, not at all. Okay, I'll take care of it. And the parents will then, whether or not they have that conversation, I can't guarantee you. But a good parent would then say, well, now you lied. Because they want to deflect a little bit. They know they're in a little trouble because they're speeding in mom's car, spinning the tires, doing whatever they were doing, doing donuts, whatever. They don't want to admit to everything, so they got to deflect it, try to say, oh, the officer swore at me, or the officer did that or did this. And at least with those videos, I can then look at it and go, no, he did it exactly the way I would have done it. And he was very fair. You know, and whatnot. So I think the cameras are a really good thing as far as protecting us from the false allegations, because you know it's hard to unring a bell. Once somebody accuses you of something, very difficult to unring that bell. You know, because you know he tells his friends at the bar, and maybe that person's gotten a ticket or didn't like the way an officer treated him. Next thing you know, that thing gets legs. Whether it deserves it or not. You know, I mean that's the unfortunate part.
Another common misconception that I think I read up on: do cops don't just look out for themselves, right? Like oh, this cop turned his head because another cop like okay, so I guess I don't really know how to explain what I'm saying. You wouldn't turn your head to a cop committing a crime just because he's a cop, right? No. Okay, that's I guess that's the best way to put it.
The common thing that people get upset about is officers don't generally write other officers a ticket.
Okay.
Now they do. I mean, it's happened, and I would do it if it was really bad. But I've stopped officers for speeding before and said, hey, slow down. You know, if I stopped them the second, third, fourth time, you know, maybe I go, listen, this can't keep happening. You know, again, depending on what he was doing or whatever, and maybe you call the sergeant, say, hey, listen, this guy was disrespectful and he keeps speeding. Tell him to slow down. That can happen. You know, I mean, and I think that's one of the, and people aren't going to like this, but it's kind of one of the fringe benefits of the job is generally, you know, you're not going to get a speeding ticket if you're going, you know, 10 over or whatever, the officer stops you or whatever. You're probably going to get a warning more often than not. You know, it's just part of it, but it's, but drunk driving is a different story. And especially with cameras nowadays, there isn't that, you know, look the other way kind of thing, you know, because it's there now. And, you know, the last thing you'd want is to do something that's generally against the law and let someone go. And then somebody's reviewing your video and finds out that the guy couldn't even stand up, you know, and whatever, and you let him go, you could get fired. You know, so most officers are protecting themselves. You know, people don't like that part of it. And I understand it, but it is kind of the nature of the beast.
What's the difference between probable cause and reasonable suspicion?
Well, reasonable suspicion just means you believe something might be happening, or whatever. And that's just my feeling of based on, you know, that car being in that area, which we've had break-ins. It kind of fits the description. So I'm going to make a traffic stop on it. Probable cause gets you that one step above that, where now you found a screwdriver and a pry bar. When you walked up to the car, now you're talking to the guy and you look on the backseat floor to see what's going on. And there's a pry bar, a flashlight, and a screwdriver. Now I've got some probable cause to go with that. The reason that I stopped that car in that area, depending on what they were doing or whatever. So it's just, it's their levels that you just keep going up.
Well, and one of the other things that I really think, cops aren't just out to get somebody. Like I feel like that is what the world believes, that you guys just have some chip on your shoulder all the time. And I'm trying to, I know it's not just me. I know the world has to think different. But I really wish everybody could see law enforcement like how you are, like how I see it, because I just think that one day you guys woke up and you got a bad name. I don't even remember the day that it happened, but I swear it was just like a flip. I mean, people that I knew that would like, oh, I love the cops, this and that. Rich Cook used to be JPD. Now it's like he doesn't hate cops because he used to be a cop, but he never talks about that part of his life anymore. It's like, I don't get it. I just don't get it.
Yeah, I think some of that is people view things a little bit differently based on their experiences with law enforcement. Some of it could be when you're little. If you've had a good experience when a police officer, you see him at school, you see him here or there in high five and fist bump them. We do a lot of that. But if you were a little kid and you watched your dad, maybe assault your mom and then fight with the police, you're going to have a bad feeling about those police officers.
Yes, sir.
And whatnot. But we don't wake up every day looking to screw with somebody. It just is a matter. I was on my way to work, just minding my own business at 6:55 in the morning, pulling into the office, and some guy went flying by me on the right. Didn't realize that I was in a police car, and passed me on the right. Went off the road and whatever. I turned the lights on, chased him down, walked up. I said, "What was that?" He goes, "Man, I didn't know you were a cop." And I went, "Well, you're not supposed to pass on the right."
Yeah, no kidding.
He's like, "Man," I said, "Well, I'm on my way to work, not even actually working yet. So I don't have the computer and a ticket book, but I don't want to see that again." And he's like, "Man, thanks. I'm sorry." And on he went. I didn't pick on that guy. He chose to pass me on the right. And so it's like the whole thing of, we don't drive by and jump out of the car and run into a house to see if some guy's beating his wife or his wife's beating on the kids or any of that stuff. We generally get called to that stuff. The traffic stop stuff is just traffic enforcement and its safety. We're big on trying to correct the way people drive, slow them down rather than write tickets, because I'm not a super huge fan. I hope I don't get in trouble for this of insurance companies. So I don't want to jack up someone's rates just because they made a mistake. Now, if they make the mistake over and over, maybe. But I think you have to be fair, and especially in our community, which is I think is a fantastic place to grow up. It's a fantastic place to work. I kind of, one of the things I had written down is I would say 95% of our community, I'd say 98.5% of our community are great citizens and good people. And they may not always like us or whatever. They're not going to go out and champion our cause, but they're not. They're not criminals. They're not whatever. They're just trying to live their life. But we have a few. Less like any place else. You put a group of people together. I think we have something like just under 7,000 people in Napoleon. But we have some morons. I mean, we actually do. Some of them are upset because they got arrested because they committed a crime. Some of them are upset because they don't like cops. Some of them maybe wanted to be one, but they got something on the record they can't. And some of them are just, I'll be honest, some are just jerks. I mean, they just are. But we deal with them. It is what it is. I'm looking forward to not having to do that. Eventually, it's just be around people I want. But again, I'm so fortunate because when I was at Jackson County, you're busier, you're running into more calls, you're getting dispatched a lot more. So you're running into that situation a lot more. So there's a little more intensity involved in that than there is generally where we're at.
So perfect. I have two more misconceptions that I want to touch, and then I will ask if I missed anything questions so we can go over it. Perfect. You pull over on the side of the road, your lights are off. Everybody swears up and down it's entrapment. It is not, correct? So you're on the side of the road in your cop car, turn the lights off. Somebody goes by speeding. Everybody swears up and down it's entrapment. It's not. Okay.
Again, you're not. If we sat there with our lights on and turn our overheads on, you're not going to go speeding by. If a neighbor is called and said, "Hey, these people are flying by my house. My wife was out getting the mail, and I want them slowed down," that citizen has a right to be safe, get into his mailbox, and want his his street to be safe.
Yep.
So we'll go sit in those areas. Now, we don't put brush over the top of it or and try to camouflage ourselves to that point. We're sitting where stuff is happening, open to the public.
Yes, sir.
So, in that case, it's not entrapment. That's just I don't know where that ever started or why.
Okay.
It's kind of strange.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like, well, yes, I was speeding, but you shouldn't have been sitting there. Whatever.
Yeah. No,
I'm not sure what. Yeah, we didn't teach that in Napoleon. They didn't. That wasn't a class we had in Napoleon. They didn't teach that. But yeah, no, it's not.
And clearly, I know most of these are fake.
Yeah.
And now
no, it's not fake. That is out there. It's just
people believe that. Though.
We have the Jackson, the county park right there on Wolf Lake Road.
Yeah,
and it's a 25-mile zone
through there all the time.
They go through there really fast. So the people that live there don't like it when people go through there at 45, 50 miles an hour.
Yep,
totally understand that.
Yep.
Now we're more attentive to that in the summer when there's kids that are walking back and forth because they park across the road to get to the lake or whatnot. And the last thing I want is to have a kid get hit in our town.
Yeah.
So we pay more attention to it then, but we go down there and sit and we don't write that many tickets there. Again, if we stop you and you're decent and you say, yeah, man, I'm sorry, I wasn't thinking, I'll slow down. That's one thing. But if you're coming through there every day at 57 miles an hour, you're asking for it. That's just kind of one of the things. But I've never believed in speed traps. Like hiding behind a billboard or something and whatnot. And I don't think that really happens very much.
No.
I can't imagine a chief would be very happy if his officers were doing stuff like that.
Yeah,
that wouldn't be good.
Another misconception I feel like. Let's say I'm speeding down Cooper Street. I'm about to hit downtown Jackson. Can you pull me over, or is that outside of your jurisdiction?
Well, it kind of depends.
Okay.
Because like Jackson County, we're deputized.
Okay.
So the sheriff has deputized my officers in case we have to go.
Oh, so you could pull me over.
Yeah. In case we have to go to back up their officers, or sometimes if the county was, especially with low manpower, tied up on a specific situation, and we have to go there. And we're the first officer there. You don't want to go there and not be able to enforce something if something's going on.
Gotcha.
If it's a domestic or or something like that. So yes, we are deputized. We don't make a practice of it. We try to stay in our own area. 127 has always been kind of an issue, people, because there's only a section that are actually in Napoleon Township.
Yes, sir.
But Meridian Road, which is mostly not passable now. So we have to take 127 to get to Cook or whatever, occasionally, depending on if we're in a hurry or, going on a rescue or something like that. So you've got Blue Ridge Road, Cook Road, and those. So we can enforce those laws on those boundaries by statute.
Gotcha.
Because it's a bordering road.
Okay.
So we have that, but and it's a rare occasion. We've been taking a car out to Parma before to get work done on it, because that's where the guy that upfits our cars is at, and had some kind of, or actually it was a female, and I think she was a doctor out of Chicago. She went by us at like 100 miles an hour.
Oh, geez.
Well, we're not, everybody that's around us is going, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So, we pull them over, occasionally. I think we've written a couple tickets that way. But, I've talked with the sheriff numerous times about that. And as long as we're not making a habit of trying to enforce laws, in other jurisdictions, we just don't do that.
Can you, just the way you worded that, so can a cop find themselves in that position? Like they go to the scene of a crime because of whatever, they happen to be by it, but they don't have no jurisdiction. Can they not uphold the law?
Depends on if it's a felony.
Oh, okay.
Or something like that. They can certainly act upon that.
Gotcha.
Most of the time when that kind of stuff happens, we encourage the officer to become a good witness. So when the other officers get there that have jurisdiction, like me, I travel to Tennessee all the time. I'm certainly not deputized anywhere outside of Jackson County.
Fair enough.
So if I saw something happening, obviously if it was a felony or somebody was getting hurt, I would act.
Yeah.
And I'm generally armed. So if I had to do that, I could. But generally in that situation, I just try to become the best witness possible.
Gotcha.
Getting a plate description of the car or the suspect. If you're at a gas station, you see a robbery,
I see.
and somebody jump in their car and running off. I'm not saying I might not try to follow the guy a little bit carefully.
Yeah.
Get on the phone, call the police or something like that, call 911. But generally, you try to stay in your lane and with what you're supposed to do.
And I forgot one more before I
Sure.
ask. I'm sorry.
We've actually covered almost everything.
Perfect. I feel like well, even Officer Jacobson talked about it a little bit, and I thought it was funny. So he runs his dog at, I think it was Hondo he was talking about. I don't remember the dog name. He was running his dog through a house. Zando. The DEA already cleared this house. There was nothing else to be found in this house. Well, he found more stuff because Officer J. Do federal governments and local law enforcement work well together? Or
normally.
Okay, awesome.
And that's one of the it's one of the blessings too about being in Jackson County. And again, that some of that goes back to ego. We used to have a chief of police in Jackson that was not super well respected. Had kind of a huge ego, and it was very difficult. The sheriff's department in the city, not that the command staff didn't get along, but we didn't get along with him. We got along with his officers fine, but we didn't get along with him. And he would I don't want the county in my city, things like that. But over my career, for the most part, we've had really great camaraderie between agencies. And you don't have to necessarily agree with everything another jurisdiction does, whether or not they write tickets or don't write tickets, or how they act, or if they don't want to back you up or something like that. You're going to have some of that kind of grind, but for the most part, people leave their egos at the door, and we all work well together. And especially right now in Jackson, I think that's huge, is to have that ability to work together and not, this is my ball, I'm going to take it home and you can't play with it, because that's ridiculous. And it's very childish. But again, not every agency's that way. I mean, there are some agencies, and again, I think it starts with leadership. If you're that kind of leader, and you think you've got to be, the cool kid, or I know everything, chances are that the culture around them is not going to be good. And it's all about getting along and doing the right thing and working together, no matter who gets credit for a crime. I could honestly, in Deputy Chief Peters and Chris Jacobson, those guys, they have the same philosophy. I don't care who gets the credit as long as we do a good job.
Yes, sir.
I don't need to have my name in the paper. I don't need to be the person talking on JTV or on Channel 10. If one of my officers does something really good, I've actually forced a couple of them to do interviews, and they didn't want to. But they're the ones that did the work. So they deserve the credit. And anytime an agency steps in and helps us, which, bigger crimes, you're going to need more people. I could destroy Napoleon's budget just trying to investigate a homicide. All on my own. But we have Jackson County and Jackson City has people in a task force that would come and help us make sure, for the good of the citizens of the county, that we do a good job. And I would never go, you're not coming into Napoleon and take over my case. I want it solved. I want my community safe. I could care less about who gets credit.
Yes, sir. Is there anything that I didn't ask that I should have?
I think I had a couple things written down. I guess kind of one of the big things I had, and I think you talked with Caitlin a little bit when my daughter, when she was here. I don't know many cops that don't have PTSD. Yes, sir. To go along with what your wife does, and what my daughter does, and whatnot. My daughter will say once in a while to me, "Oh my God, Dad, you're full of PTSD." She can see it. I don't necessarily see it. I know I have it. You can't see dead babies. You can't see people that have been murdered or raped or cut up and not have that affect you. I still have, and I think I told you this before, but I still have a little girl drowned. I was only a police officer for 6 months. A little girl drowned at Lake Columbia. And that still haunts me to this day. Not all the time. Just every once in a while, hearing the mom scream, seeing a little girl's face. It still affects me. It's over 40 years that happened. And seeing stuff like that, and especially kids will put you into a different area in whether you're really hurt by it, whether it makes you angry, that those are emotions that you have. That's a very tough thing to deal with. I think we do a better job today of trying to recognize that and treat that so officers don't do it. But I know of several officers in the last 10 years that started doing this job and then had to pull their gun on somebody, almost had to pull the trigger, and was like, this job isn't for me. Couldn't do it. And you don't want them to be doing that. You know, you don't want to mess somebody up. But then, you know, having to go to autopsies and things like that. I mean, that it's very hard.
Yeah.
It's not easy. It's, you know, you got to have good support, and you also have to have the ability to say, listen, I need some help. I don't know how I'm going to deal with this.
Yes, sir.
One of my best friends, Ron Kinch, and we talk about this often because Caitlin had just been born, and we had an accident on the highway, and a car flipped upside down and another car hit it, and the baby was decapitated. And same age as Caitlin, or right around that age, in a car seat. And I started to run up to the car to try to help get, you know, see if people needed help. And Ron grabbed me and pulled me away because he didn't want me to see it. And I didn't see it. They handled it. And I'm thankful to this day for that. I mean, it's a shame that he has to bear that, you know, by himself. And with the other folks that came and helped that day, but he was trying to save me from seeing that. And not that I haven't seen a bunch of other crap, but it just is, you know, once in a while. I was just down to reading. Our sergeant, Mark Hodshire, was a school liaison officer in Napoleon, and he just got hired as a chief down there. So he'd been down there about a month or so. So we went down to visit him, had breakfast, and got to see his department and stuff like that. And we got up to leave, and there was a gentleman there that said, "Hey, thank you for your service." Little things like that. The other morning at McDonald's, some lady in front of me, I have no idea who she is, paid for my breakfast.
Awesome.
You know, little things. I mean, and that's when, you know, I think Chris Jacobson told you when he was here, those kind of things, when you get a little bit of a pat on the back from a citizen that doesn't really know you, but just says, hey, you know, thanks for what you do. Appreciate it. And we're really close to our firemen in Napoleon. Napoleon is I hate to say that, a couple of people have said it's kind of like a unicorn because we get along very well. And we respect our firefighters. They respect us. We don't care who gets credit for anything. It's a team.
Yes, sir.
And I firmly do not believe that you can serve your community to the best effort of all of us if you don't work as a team.
Yes, sir.
Now you can still work together on a scene, but if there's animosity, it doesn't flow. So the culture in Napoleon it's a team. We all rise and fall together.
Yes,
and it's rare, but I really think that also helps with dealing with the stress of the job, because there is somebody I can go sit in Chief Pickford's office and tell him about something that's bothered me or something that happened, or you know, you go on a DOA and the person's younger, or a suicide or something like that, and you're trying to put that somewhere, you know, and so when you have a good team around you, you have that ability to do. So it's kind of cool when we get to use that.
Yes, sir. One more thing, and then I'll ask a twisted version of my wrap-up question.
Okay.
One of your officers talked about this a little bit, and I don't want to say the name, but I wanted to say that so you know who I'm talking about. Do you think law enforcement, when it comes to retirement, do you think they're treated properly, or do you think we could treat our retired cops better?
I think I think they could do a better job in some of it. I know I'm still bitter at the Jackson County Board of Commissioners started screwing with our health insurance after we'd already retired, and we had a contract. And then they voted in a law to backdoor and start messing, and it cost me thousands of dollars that it wouldn't have cost me if we'd have stayed with the insurance. So I'm a little bitter about that, because I think once you make an agreement and someone's given you their 25 years of their life and done a good job, and that's the deal they made, and we had given away tons of raises over the years to have better health care and better health insurance and better retirement. So we gave away, instead of getting maybe a 5% raise or a 3% raise, we took a 1, 2, and a 1 to get us through. But we wanted that good insurance, and then just shortly after I retired, they started screwing with it. And I'm still bitter about that. And I'll probably be bitter about it for a long time. But as far as the citizenry, I think unfortunately, I think we've forgotten what happened in 9/11 and how much respect those police officers and those firefighters Not everybody, because I see great things happening, great salutes. I think NASCAR is really good at it.
Yeah.
The football around the time of some of the latest tragedies have supported that. Still bitter at them over the hands up, don't shoot thing, and the lack of backing off of that. But I just think that everybody just wants to retire and be comfortable and whatnot. But I think the pendulum kind of comes back a little bit. It swings every now and then a little out of control. But
yes, sir.
Hopefully,
I
I keep hoping. So
Is there anything that I missed that you would like to share?
No.
Okay.
No, I think we covered everything, and I appreciate the opportunity to come on.
Of course.
And I'm always available for you.
Yes, I do. Chief Pittman, I'm sure I'll bug you to come on again soon, and we'll find out something. So exactly.
They would talk about me retired.
So my skewed version of what is your definition of success for your department?
I think for the most part, it's just the community being happy for what we do and supporting us, and they do that. We work real closely with the school. Our school in Napoleon, we got a new school liaison officer. I should talk about that. Tom Freeman was a deputy at Jackson County, and he left for another job, and then another one, and then he just gave up a really good job to come back to work at Napoleon. And 2 weeks before I called him, he had actually said to his wife, I really miss law enforcement, but the only way I'd ever go back is if I could be the liaison in Napoleon. And Mark was in the process of trying to be the chief in Reading, and we supported that because Mark's a great police officer, do a great job as a chief. But Napoleon Schools is so important to our community because that is where our greatest assets are in those kids. So if anything ever happened to that school, I don't know if I'd make it through it. Because that's how important it is. And our fire department is there every day. Unless they're on a call, we're there seeing the kids get through the crosswalk and fist bumping and talking to them and whatnot. And we hired Tom, and he's only been there a week and 2 days, and he's doing remarkable.
Awesome.
His kids go to Napoleon. He lives in Napoleon, and he wanted that job. And he's a really good detective. He's got a lot of background in emergency management stuff. So a lot of the stuff as far as safety of the school, he's going to be able to help us, gain that much more. And when we hear from the community, the superintendent of the schools, the teachers and whatnot, of how much they like our school officer, how much they like seeing us at the school, how important it is to them that we're there, and they're proud of us, they're proud of the job we do, then hell, that's good enough for me.
Heck yes.
That's when you, I think, reached a good level of success.
Yes, sir. I don't think any of our other wrap-up questions would make sense. So I'll end there. But I was talking to Officer Jacobson, and I told him instead of a gift card this week, I wanted to donate to his night out with Santa. I asked him how much other people normally donate. He would not give me a number because I'm guessing that I'm not going to hit close. But
every dollar that they get in, and he doesn't ever want to put anybody in.
And that's what he kept saying, and that was very nice of him. No, seriously, but here's $100 to the night out with Santa. Yes, sir.
He will be thrilled.
Yes,
I'll probably call him on the way home, or he may call me if he wants to listen.
Well, I told him to watch this episode actually, and I said, because I told him what we were going to discuss, and I said it could go both ways. About me saying that, pretty much that I was a rat in most people's terms. So I said, if it goes good, I'll invite him on next month. If it goes bad, then whatever.
We just did a thing where we were able to honor Jerry Cox and Jody Jacobson, his wife, and Chris. They got a thing from the state, like a tribute for their Night Out with Santa program. They've been doing it over 20 years, and that guy puts his heart and soul, and his wife does all the shopping, and Jerry is a great person for going out in the community and getting money and in watching them, because that's their program. I'm standing in the background and watching when they do that, and because they're the ones that do it, and watching their face and seeing, they help veterans as well, and as they do kids, and it's fun to watch them. I get as much joy, I think, watching them be happy about what they do, than I do even just watching the kids. And but that's a wonderful part of it as well.
God, what was it? You or him that was telling me that you guys did 8 families last year, but it was the whole family. It wasn't just kids, right?
No,
it was
whole
the mom and dad,
Yeah,
and
whole
that's
family.
amazing,
Yeah.
man. That's
They
phenomenal.
usually they help out a little bit at Thanksgiving as well
Mhm.
with some veterans to make sure that they have their meals and stuff like that. And we try to make sure that we, obviously there's sometimes you miss somebody or whatever, but we work with the schools to find out, what families maybe could use just a little bit of an extra hand.
Yeah.
I think I told you we have a community benefactor guy that I cannot say his name. I don't want him pissed at me.
Yes, sir.
He gives us about $2,000 every year
Awesome.
around Christmas.
Yeah,
to
you did it.
go out and make traffic stops, which it's kind of fun to give people money rather than tickets.
Tickets, yeah.
Some of them are but that's the one thing about being in a good community too, that it's pretty awesome.
Man, Chief Pittman,
Pretty
thank
cool.
you for coming
Thank you.
on.
I appreciate
Thank you,
it.
seriously.
Appreciate you letting me come back on.
Oh, of course. No, this has been a pleasure. I'm gonna end these real quick. What is that? S3.